So what were your impressions about Brazil?
I think first thing is it's probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to.
Yeah.
And I went there just thinking all these people love football and that's it. And when I got there, that's pretty much it. Like they're all just mad about football. I love football as well, so I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
That's great.
And compared to Britain, everyone's a lot friendlier there and a lot more welcoming than here. And I really enjoyed that aspect of their culture as well.
Yeah.
They're very expressive, which was made a nice change really.
Yeah, that's brilliant. But I mean, it's amazing to see that there's so much difference between two countries, and yet you'd never know the real essence of that place when you're sitting in one place. So how do you see your role changing with respect to this big globalist world that we're living in?
I think the trip kind of taught me that rather than being just a UK citizen, I'm also a global citizen.
Yeah.
And sort of the jobs that we're applying for we're not just competing with people in the UK, we're competing with people in Brazil everywhere. There's just so much competition out there, and these people, they all can speak English, and they really have a drive that we need to teach ourselves to have as well if we want to be competitive.
Yes, it is really easy to sort of sink into this whole complacency.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But I mean, like you said, people over there are really focused on what they want to do, and you experienced it firsthand when you were placed with a big global company in Brazil.
Yeah, I was with Cadbury adults there, and it was amazing to see that the people there spoke 3 languages. They all spoke Portuguese, obviously, as that's in Brazil. They spoke English as well, and Spanish. And anyone at any level in the company could speak all those languages. It was just fantastic to see how sort of educated they were, and how much better than us they really were.
Yeah, well, it's just surprising when you see things like those. And so do you think that, I mean, you went as a student, and so of course you experienced the difference between the education here and the education there. Yeah. And when you worked with the big company, did you think that the education that we have here in the UK today sort of really does equip you to make the change that you'd want to make in the future?
I think the thing about education here is that when you're applying for a job, everyone has a degree.
Right.
So it's not really about getting a university degree, it's about what else you do. For example, the Prime Minister Global Fellowship, which we went on, that sort of extra experience which employers look at, and internships, that's the kind of stuff that really makes a difference.
Yeah.
And in Brazil, loads of people had internships. That's what they would do while they're at university, while they're studying.
Right.
Just get as much experience as they can, and that's what really makes a difference.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you're right. And how do you see your future changing in light of these experiences?
I think I've realised that I've got to sort of seize the opportunities that come my way. I think we take for granted too often in the UK sort of all the opportunities we have, being the sort of country that we live in. Whereas in Brazil, they don't have many opportunities, but they just run to any opportunity they get.
Yeah.
And that's what I've sort of brought back with me. And I've sort of, anything that's come my way, I've just taken, because I've realised that I don't know when my next opportunity is going to come. I might not be so lucky tomorrow.
That is true. So, and what was the impression you got about the young talent that you met over there? How is it different from the students?
I think they're a lot more driven from a young age.
Right.
We were speaking to people in the schools, and not only did they know that they wanted to be doctors, but they knew which kind of medicine they wanted to study. And
from school itself.
From school itself, and that's all they were aiming for from the age of about 12.
Yeah.
Whereas I still don't know what I want to do, which kind of shows the very stark difference.
There's a disparity.
Yeah, definitely.
But you're so lucky to have been on this fellowship program. And as from what you're saying, I understand it's really important for everyone who lives in the UK to sort of keep the wider horizon in mind the whole time, because you're not living in a country now, you're living in one small world, aren't you?
Definitely. I think it sort of opened my eyes to how close we really are.
Yeah.
And apart from the cultural differences, which we learnt to sort of bridge on the trip, there's not much difference between myself being an 18-year-old English youth to a Brazilian 18-year-old youth. We think the same, we have the same likes, dislikes, same aims in life. Yeah. It's just slight cultural differences. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
And so when you walk into the working world tomorrow as a bright, young, talented person, how will this experience enable you to work better, to work harder?
I think the one thing I really learned from it was about sort of the different cultures and how to get past the language barriers and whatever else there is. And it teaches you to better appreciate people for who they are.
That is true.
And that's the one thing which I think we take for granted in the UK, because we're such a cosmopolitan society.
Yes.
There's so many different types of people we see that we kind of just take that for granted. That people are different, but you really learn to appreciate that when you're in a culture where you're out of the norm and you're different completely. And that's what I probably picked up from Brazil.